this session is about really creating a single source of the truth with Anaplan. And really, it's also presenting to you a point of view on Anaplan as part of your overall data strategy. You might be thinking to yourself, well, Anaplan's known as a planning platform. And this might be getting into some of the questions later, but why are we talking about this here? It's definitely a very, I would say, non-traditional use case with Anaplan, but certainly there's a compelling business case for it. This particular example, it was really, this particular client of ours is a portfolio company of a private equity firm. And they had multiple disparate data sources and regular reporting requirements that they had to fulfill. And this is a company that has been amalgamated through various mergers and acquisitions over time as the private equity firm combined it with other organizations that were complementary or a vertical type of relationship, with complementary firms and technologies and so on. And along with the acquisitions came all of the legacy systems and data that those organizations had. So they ended up being in a situation where they had a very vast, technical landscape of multiple different systems, multiple different data dictionaries, multiple different charts of accounts, just multiple different ways of calling things. But what they had to do, though, is bring all that together, aggregate it, perform calculations that were needed for reporting purposes, and then present it in a deck, if you will, or a series of decks. And so that's the challenge that they were facing. Now, do you have to be, a portfolio company for a private equity firm to have these issues? No, right? Any kind of organization that has multiple different disparate data sources, where they have to basically try to bring all that data together in a meaningful fashion and report on it and be able to derive some insights from it and be able to make decisions based on it. Anaplan is ideally suited to that use case as well. Obviously they acquired the data in their sources, and they also had no data warehouse, no centralized single ERP. And as I said, they had multiple different definitions of things, multiple different metadata, multiple different, and just created basically multiple sources or multiple versions of the truth that kind of had to be brought together to display kind of like that one truth. So the current state was they used Excel as a bridge between these different systems. That resulted in huge number of vast multi-tabbed workbooks, if you can just imagine, right? Resulted in heroic efforts that staff had to undertake to meet the reporting requirements. And they also had maintenance issues as well, because as you know, using Excel kind of as your consolidator, if you will, if you need to make changes, or if there's changes back in one of the source systems, there's going to be issues with using Excel to do that. So they had maintenance issues, and changes were not a trivial thing. There's also error prone, right? Because in a lot of cases, what you're doing is you're basically downloading the data from these source systems, then you're selecting a range and copying and pasting and putting it into a destination, which then has a bunch of links that then basically aggregates and does V lookups and H lookups and then sum ifs and all that kind of stuff to kind of present that multidimensional reporting view that's needed. So there's errors involved in that process. And it certainly wasn't scalable, and it certainly wasn't timely. And the key thing as well for this client was that they lost the link between the aggregate results and the transactional detail that adds up to those results. And that is critical for being able to drill down and investigate and analyze. And they lost that link because of the approach that they had to take, because they didn't have an Anaplan to solve this particular problem. And we came to them with a pretty strong point of view on how we could solve this problem and how Anaplan was really the linchpin of that. And here's kind of our view of the end state for them is that they're going to have, and again, this is just subledger 1 and 2, which, this is what this POC that we put together for them was based on, but this basically goes out to like subledger N, right, as you can imagine. So they'll have all the different subledgers with the data stored at the lowest level of detail. We're going to bring that data into Anaplan at the transactional level. Then what we're going to do is, and again, the way they originally worked, like in the current state, was that they would then have to derive journal entry adjustments from this patchwork of Excel being used to bring all this data together. They would then create financial journal entries, which would then get posted to their ledger system. And along with losing that link to the transactional data, they also lost the ability to kind of reconcile, the adjustments they had to make to what's in their ERP system. Our point of view was that Anaplan would be able to clean all that up, because you're basically going to bring in your subledger detail at the transactional level into Anaplan. Anaplan's then going to consolidate, that information. You're also going to be able to layer in adjustments to those subledgers directly within Anaplan, and those are going to get posted to the ledger. And then we're going to bring in the ledger data into Anaplan as well on an adjusted basis, and then provide that reconciliation of the balance, first of all, the balance checks and the reconciliations, so they can understand how their subledgers are tying to their GL and all the adjustments they had to make on top of that. And then ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to automate their required reporting. And the outcome of this is going to be 3 critical decks that have all the information that is required to report, and on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. And Anaplan is going to automate that process. So this was our point of view that we presented to them, and actually it was received as a very compelling proposal to them, because they could see that they're going to save like hundreds of hours of time that they spend going through these heroic efforts using Excel where it really shouldn't be used, and instead use an enterprise platform with scalability and security and auditability and drill down capability and ease of maintenance and so on, and also multidimensionality and also natural aggregation to then alleviate a lot of that workload. And they're going to be able to redirect critical resources to more value-added activities, such as the interpretation of these results and the business decisions that result from them, rather than going through those efforts of manipulating the data, if you will. So that was our design, the end state that we have for them. And, let's talk a little bit about how data gets into Anaplan. And again, if there's a data source out there that at the most rudimentary level can generate an export file, Anaplan can bring that data in. So, Anaplan can connect to virtually any data source that's out there, and it has a variety of integration techniques that can be employed to do that. First and foremost, right, it can be text or CSV files. And again, any kind of on-premise or cloud systems that you're using can be integrated into Anaplan. First and foremost, the simplest approach is those text files. Anaplan can bring those text files in on a scheduled basis. You can even put those text files on Anaplan CloudWorks, which is based like Amazon S3. And Anaplan can pull those files in on a scheduled basis using its CloudWorks integration capability. So they can be very simple text files, but we can also have more automated and scheduled approaches to bringing that data in. Can you schedule the flat files? Absolutely, right? But you can also have cloud-to-cloud integrations. You can also use Anaplan Connect, which is basically provides a JDBC connection to data sources that you can then pull in on a scheduled basis and bring that data in, so we can reach directly into any kind of on-prem or cloud database solutions that might have the data that you need into Anaplan. There's also standard ETL connectors that can be utilized, whether it be like Informatica, Dell Boomi, SnapLogic, MuleSoft. Anaplan has standard connectors for those as well. It also works with orchestration tools. If you have like a broader data orchestration strategy that you're employing, Anaplan can connect with that as well. Anaplan's also got like API capability as well, which again is more complex than bringing in flat files, but that capability is there to fit in with whatever your desired, integration standards are, if you will. Because a lot of times, companies potentially have standardized on a certain, ETL capability, and Anaplan fits into that apparatus. And then basically, Anaplan brings that data into what we call the data hub, right? Which again is that beginning of that single version of the truth, right? So Anaplan brings that data in, can also normalize it if needed, if there's fields that are missing, validated, et cetera, and give you the ability to kind of clean that data up and kind of have it positioned for reporting. And then you can have, multiple models kind of connecting to that data hub. In this case, they're going to have like a reporting model that's going to connect to the data hub, ingest whatever data is required to kind of to support their end reporting needs, and provide the aggregations, the calculations, and the presentation of that as well as part of that. But you can have multiple different models connecting to that data hub, and that data hub in Anaplan is really what provides that single source of the truth, if you will. So that's just a quick look at how Anaplan, a typical Anaplan deployment, where it's really connecting to a multitude of different source systems on automated scheduled basis, as well as flat file imports and so on, bringing that data into Anaplan, and then making that available to any kind of models that might need that. In this case, it was reporting. So let's walk through just a quick product demonstration, and I have a few slides to show you after this as well. But from a demonstration point of view, we first started off by, and again, this follows on a little bit to my consolidation demo from one of the prior sessions, where you can actually have different security assignments within Anaplan. In this case, you can have the role of a journal entry creator and or the role of an approver, and basically, depending on what your role is, you may not necessarily have the ability to approve journal entries, but perhaps have the ability to create them. But you can activate those these security settings directly within Anaplan. In fact, I'm on a dashboard right now that allows me to do that. As well, you can also indicate like what open periods you have as well within Anaplan. So right now we have the May open period, and all these other periods are closed. But you could also open up, prior periods, if you wanted to within Anaplan as well. And that also follows on nicely from the consolidation demo I did previously, where you can actually post entries into prior periods if needed. And here's how you can kind of control the access to that directly within Anaplan. Then we've got, we think about that flow chart, right? That bringing in that transactional data into Anaplan. So basically here I've got two different subledgers, and I've got the GL information. So I'm just going to bring in this information. I'm just going to browse, and again, in this particular case, what you have is the ability to bring in this flat file into Anaplan and actually run that process. And actually, maybe I picked the wrong file here. Just bear with me for a second. Yeah, and basically now, we can now go ahead and select like what period we're going to bring this into. So I think I'm going to select May here, and I'm going to go ahead and actually I think this one was Accelytics. Just bear with me for a second. I'm going to bring this data into the May period. Go ahead and run it, and now what you've got is basically data that's been brought in. Now, what's interesting about this is that you'll notice that there's a very sort of long account string here, right, with different fields like the amount without, and what's interesting about this is that you're bringing in this data in like its native format. So Anaplan, whatever its chart of accounts is, whatever the different fields are, bringing in the data kind of as is. And this is an important part with Anaplan, is that whatever format that data is in, we can bring that data in as is, and then use Anaplan to do the mappings, if you will. So we're bringing that subledger data in as is in its native format. Then we're going to bring in the second subledger data. So I'm just going to pull this file in. Again, we're using flat files here, but they could be any format as well. Just keep that in mind. And then basically, we have also our ledger as well. So I'll just go ahead and upload the general ledger balances as well. So we'll bring that data in. Here we've got our general ledger balance. We'll go ahead and bring that in as well. Now we have sort of three sets of data into Anaplan, subledgers at their own sort of native format, as well as the general ledger information as well. And then what we do, you can then start, you can aggregate that information up. But then what they also wanted to do was actually look at journal entries as a result of this, right? So in this case, what Anaplan is able to do is automate the creation of those journal entries, because one of the challenges they had was having to generate these journal entries, and they ended up being sort of a manual exercise. But in Anaplan, what you're able to do is select. In this case, what we're doing is we're creating a journal entry like for gross sales and for discounts. And in this case, what you're able to do is actually say, okay, well, for these different, product types that we have, pick the debit account and credit account. And what you do is you do that on like a one-time mapping basis. And then Anaplan will automatically generate the journal entry as a result of that. And basically what you're doing is like setting these mappings up once, and then they just perpetually run automatically. And then you have the ability to post those journal entries, as an, review and approve those journal entries as an approver. Whereas the creator, potentially you're just adjusting potentially some of these mappings and maybe booking some other adjustments that are required more on a one-off basis, but those are also subject to review as well. But you've got the ability to kind of easily map and automate those journal entries so that when that subledger detail comes in and gets aggregated up, Anaplan's automatically populating those journal entries as well. And then we have the ability also to create like adjusting journals for those on those one time. So you have like these automated journals that get booked as a result of that subledger data coming in. But then you also have the ability to create new journal entries on the fly as well, where you can pick a specific period, put in some kind of commentary as well, and then from here also select like what account you want to book this to. So potentially it's going to be to, let's say, sales. What product is it going to be to? So you have the ability to kind of select these different products and put in an amount. And again, what would the credit be? So maybe the credit's going to be like account receivable for CRM, and maybe that's going to be 1,000 or something like that. So you have the ability to kind of put in your debit and credit line items as well. And you'll notice that this entry has a status of draft. So what you have the ability to do, and you'll notice that I don't have approver capability, so that is grayed out as per my security profile. But I can also like preview the impact of these journal entries as well, and immediately see kind of what the impact on the financials would be as a result of that. And then you can also submit this journal entry as well, so it's submitted but not approved. And then potentially an approver could go in and actually approve this journal entry. So you have like that secure, that sort of secure process or audit trail as well, where you separate the role from the creator from the approver. And then also a critical part here was also confirming whether in fact this was entered in the ledger system, because ultimately there's a reconciliation process that occurs because you're posting that entry in Anaplan. That entry then needs to feed into the ledger because we're bringing in the adjusted values from the ledger back in Anaplan for matching purposes. So confirming whether in fact that has been entered in Great Plains. And again, this could be an automated indicator, so that when you're booking that entry or importing that entry into the ERP system, that automatically sets an indicator in Anaplan that it's been entered and now the process is complete. So for that balancing and reconciliation purposes. And so that's really what I wanted to share with you today in terms of this particular use case. Where does that bring us? Well, you probably have some questions, right, about this particular use case and why Anaplan. Well, first of all, Anaplan is very agile, flexible, and nimble. And in a case where you have like all these different disparate systems and you're under time constraints, and you've got new systems that are coming online, and none of them share a common definition, and there's no sort of data warehouse or whatever in place, you really are going to need like this agile, flexible, and nimble layer to kind of onboard, new acquisitions, new systems very quickly. And it's something that's also business user owned. So you don't have to, rely on IT to get that data in and do the aggregation and the calculations and so on. It's all business user owned within Anaplan. So you have this very nimble, like rapid response layer that can sit on top of all of your different disparate systems and bring that data in and create that single source of the truth. It enables a quick response to changes, like onboarding new entities and new systems as well. And Anaplan's a platform, which means it enables multiple use cases, but it's the same core product. There's really an advantage of doing that as well. And the data hub is reusable, right? So if you're an existing Anaplan customer and you already have a data hub in place, well, a lot of that investment and work can be reused. So now you're talking about quicker time to value as a result. And the other thing too is the transactional data is really linked to the aggregate results, right? Because we now have that subledger detail in Anaplan that then gets aggregated up. And now you have that preserved link where you can then start drilling down and understanding and get to the details of that. So that link is preserved. And again, as you implement Anaplan, each additional use case results in a nonlinear return on investment because you're starting to get exponential value. What should you consider when you're thinking about this? You should really make Anaplan part of your information and data strategy discussions, right? Because it has that capability to bring multiple sources together into a single source of the truth. And you should leverage, Anaplan's flexible, agile, and responsive data model, right? As you need to add new dimensions, if you need to do reorganizations, you're able to do all that in Anaplan in real time, and it allows you to bring new systems and acquisitions on very rapidly. And also, too, Anaplan coexists with your data warehouse strategy. So it can easily plug into and unplug from and plug into different sources as you're evolving on that journey, right? So initially, a data warehouse may not be part of your plan, but if it is, Anaplan will eventually connect to that data warehouse instead of directly to the source systems. But it can really, in an interim basis, play that intermediate role, to bring those systems together. And as the data warehouse comes online, Anaplan severs connections from the sources and plugs into the data warehouse. All the while, though, you have the same, rapid response capability that Anaplan delivers that allows you to meet any kind of requirements, that are placed on you in the interim. And also, too, think about data enrichment, right? Anaplan supports an unlimited number of properties, and those properties and tagging is really what's needed to position your data for generative AI, which is here, right? And also, too, something to consider is keep the outcomes in mind, right? The outcome here was to automate their regular reporting. And so that is the key outcome. So just keep those outcomes in mind that, is Anaplan a data warehouse? No, it's not. But the outcome is really ultimately to automate that reporting and alleviate that workload. Here's another question, is, as I just asked, like, is Anaplan a data warehouse? Let's leave that for the question section. But it's really, Anaplan is a business user owned rapid response layer that can collect, aggregate, calculate, and present results in a rapid fashion. And it coexists with any kind of data warehousing or data lake initiatives that you might have in place. Here's a look sort of how Anaplan would fit into a technology stack, right? So you have Anaplan on the left, which would include like the data hub connecting to these different source systems. But you'll notice that the data warehouse is part of that, right? So as the data warehouse evolves, Anaplan's connections to the data warehouse also evolve as well. So Anaplan coexists with your data warehousing and data lake initiatives. So now what I'd like to do is just open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions, actually. You might have touched on some of these, but I'll re-ask them just for the audience. So why wouldn't you just implement a single ERP or data warehouse instead of doing something like Anaplan?
Yep. So when you're thinking about that, think about time, cost, and rapid response, right? Should you, is a data warehouse a viable strategy? Absolutely, and it should figure into your longer term plans. But in terms of ability to rapidly respond to onboarding new acquisitions and connecting to multiple different systems and still being able to meet your report, any kind of reporting requirements you might have, Anaplan plays a critical role in that. So it should really be part of your data strategy and coexist and increase its involvement or connections to the data warehouse as your data warehouse comes online, but you don't have to wait for your data warehouse to be able to derive value.
Do you see most of the projects you work on having all three of those, kind of the ERP, the data warehouse, and Anaplan working in conjunction?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in many cases, though, there may be details in the source systems that the data warehouse doesn't have. And so Anaplan in that particular case connects to the data warehouse and to the source systems to provide the level of data granularity that is needed to meet the needs of the end users. So Anaplan really plays a vital role in bringing systems together to meet the needs of the user community.
Awesome. I think that was a great clarification on that one. So considering all the benefits, why is Anaplan not really recognized for this use case?
Yep. So again, Anaplan is known because of a conscious decision on Anaplan to kind of market itself as planning. It's really, I would say, Anaplan is kind of doing its product a bit of a disservice because it's capable of so much more. But with limited marketing dollars and analyst relationships and so on, they've kind of doubled down on planning. But Anaplan is still a platform at its core, which means that it can address other non-planning needs because of its platform capabilities. So, all of the investment has been in planning, but Anaplan's capable of so much more.
Gotcha. So this is a really great question. Is there a limit to the number of data sources or data volumes that Anaplan can handle?
Yeah, there's no limit to the number of data sources. Anaplan has to be data agnostic, so it's very flexible in terms of its data model and the systems and its integration capabilities and what it can connect to. So there's really no limit to the number of systems, and also really no limit to the number of the volume of data that can be brought into Anaplan. There's customers out there that have hundreds of billions of cells worth of data that are, on a daily basis.
And so to connect to these source systems, is there like an app or a special integration that pretty much goes with everything?
Yeah, so there's Anaplan has a variety of integration capabilities. One of which is just what we call Anaplan Connect, which is part of the platform that allows you to bring in, flat file extracts from source systems either on a scheduled basis, using a Windows scheduling program, or using Amazon S3 with CloudWorks to bring those flat files in. Those are fairly common, but also it has other integration capabilities that allow it to reach in directly to the systems using either certified connectors or APIs or other integration tools that you might already have in place to bring that data in.
Gotcha. So for someone that might already be using Anaplan, can they leverage this existing investment for the one source of truth use case?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're an existing Anaplan customer, that means you have a data hub already in place. And so that investment that you've made can be leveraged for the creation of the single source of the truth. And also too, all the plumbing that typically would be needed is already in place as well. So, it's even quicker time to value if you already have a data hub in place.
And this kind of follows up with that. Should they wait to implement Anaplan until after they implement the data warehouse, or they can already have it? I guess they can already have it pretty easily.
Yeah, you shouldn't wait until your data warehouse is implemented. Because when we talk about data warehouses and data lakes, we're talking typically years of effort, right? And also corresponding costs associated with that. But at the same time, though, reporting requirements and so on still have to be met. So the quicker you get Anaplan in place, the sooner you're going to get value from it, right? So, and also too, data warehouse initiatives and so on continuously change. And Anaplan has the capabilities to respond to those changes in a rapid fashion because of its flexible and agile nature, and it's also its flexible data model. So it's very easy to change things and immediately get new results. So, I recommend that Anaplan really go in first, because that's laying that foundational platform that then can be plugged into your source systems, but then ultimately also plugged into the data warehouse and plug and unplug as necessary to evolve with your data strategy.
Awesome. Last question. This one's about transactional data. They asked, do I have to store transactional data twice with Anaplan?
Yeah, it's a common question, and you have options there, right? So, in most cases, we recommend that transactional data be put in Anaplan as well, because then it's in Anaplan's data hub and can be leveraged by all the models that would typically be to report and plan and consolidate and so on. But there is also the capability of having that transactional data not stored within Anaplan, but stored in the source. And then what you would have in Anaplan is linked cells that would actually run a query against using a web server against the published results within those source systems, so that you're basically querying directly against the source and visualizing that data rather than having it stored within Anaplan. But again, the best practice is ultimately to have that data within Anaplan, because it makes it available for data enrichment, which is going to be needed for generative AI, because just because you have data doesn't mean it's AI ready. You've got to do the tagging and all the different attributions to that as well. Anaplan is a great vehicle to do that. And really, once that data is enriched, it's really not transactional data anymore. It's different data. So we'd recommend you bring that data into Anaplan, because number one, it's got the horsepower to do it, and it's the scalability to do it as well.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much. And thank everyone for attending today. If you've missed previous sessions, we are going to be posting these on YouTube. So be sure to look out for those, and you can subscribe to our channel and get every session that is coming available.